Unfortunately, my request to tell this story publicly was denied by certain individuals who wish to keep their identities private. But I think the world should know what happened, even if certain details are left out. This happened many years ago, but the memory of it still haunts me each and every day. I went through a phase years ago where I had this undying curiosity about paranormal stuff. A friend of mine, Blake we'll call him, told me that he had some trippy experiences with a Ouija board and insisted that we try it out. I had only known Blake for a few months at the time. We met through a mutual friend and became pretty tight. In the short time that I knew him, Blake practically became like a brother to me. My house became a second home for him. It was getting close to Halloween, and I was more curious than ever about paranormal stuff. At that time, I had heard of the Ouija board but had never used one. Blake said he was going to bring one to my house the next time he came over. As a side note, back when I was a little kid, my mom had a Ouija board stored along with other board games in our hallway closet. I asked her about it one day, and she immediately started acting weird and got rid of it. I asked her why, and she said it was because she didn't want me opening doors that couldn't be closed. I never understood what that meant until I had my own experience with it much later in life. So, it was the day before Halloween, and Blake's mom dropped him off at my place. Sure enough, he brought his Ouija board just like he said he would. I remember he was spouting off about all these rules we had to be careful to follow. He made it a point to store the planchette separate from the board, claiming that leaving them together might unleash the spirits or whatever. I wasn't a gullible believer, but I also wasn't overly skeptical. I was just open to possibilities. I was neutral, genuinely curious. I'm a big research nut, so I did a deep dive down a Ouija board rabbit hole before committing myself to actually going through with using the thing. I guess I was more skeptical at first, doubting that anything would really happen. But what I read online was concerning and downright disturbing. Let's just say I was not any more inclined to use the thing after reading up about it. I came across some startling stories about people either taking their own lives or dying in freak accidents right after using a Ouija board. And it wasn't just one or two stories. I was finding multiple alleged accounts of tragedies befalling people soon after using the board. In a strangely morbid way, the unsettling findings of my research only deepened my curiosity about the Ouija board. Knowing how dangerous it was gave me a surge of thrill and excitement, but I was still very timid about actually going through with it. Blake kept insisting that he didn't die, and that I'll just have to see for myself how fun the experience can be. I remember it was a full moon that night, or at least it was almost full. The setting seemed eerily perfect for it being the night before Halloween. Blake's Ouija board was one of those glow-in-the-dark ones, and he suggested we leave it out in the moonlight to charge it. It was actually a really nice night, not too cold or windy, so we set up the table on my front porch. Blake thought it would be better to do it outside in order to reduce the potential of unleashing something unwelcome into my house. But I wasn't really worried about anything like that. We lit a tall candle and began the session. Blake sat across from me and we both placed our hands on the plastic planchette. The board was positioned upside down for him, but he didn't mind. The session itself wasn't really scary, but it was thrilling enough to just see and feel the planchette moving without us actually doing it. I knew I wasn't moving it, and I knew Blake wasn't manipulating it. It seemed like we were getting yes and no answers pretty steadily, but when we asked questions that required spelling, the answers were consistently a mixture of letters and numbers that we were unable to decipher. At one point, the candle blew out in a small gust of wind, but we were outside after all, so that wasn't very surprising. When we said goodbye, the planchette responded by swiping itself across the word goodbye at the bottom of the board. Because of how well the first round went, we decided to go ahead and do it again. Now this second session is where things got a little creepy. This time, we established contact with something else. We asked if it was a friendly spirit, and it declined to answer. That concerned us both just a tad. After waiting a moment, the planchette pointed at Blake, and it seemed like it was trying to slide itself off the board in his direction. I swore to him that I wasn't doing it, because I certainly wasn't. We told it goodbye, but it wouldn't return the farewell. Blake seemed scared and told me that we needed to force the planchette across the word goodbye in order to properly end the session, and that's exactly what we did. He told me the same thing had happened to him the last time he used it with another friend of his. He He believed that whatever it was tried to attach itself to him personally. He believed it was trying to escape the board by sliding itself off. I wasn't so sure if that was the case, but Blake seemed to believe it wholeheartedly. We didn't continue to use it anymore that night. We moved on to other things like drinking beers, smoking weed, and listening to music, the usual. The thing with these Ouija boards is the weird stuff seems to happen a little while after use. We crashed out later that night in my room. I slept in my bed with my husky, Milo. Blake slept on the couch that was in my room. We stored the Ouija board up in my closet, and Blake insisted on covering up the planchette on the floor with some laundry. It made him feel better, so I didn't question it. Now here's where things got bizarre. I shot up in my bed a little after 2 a.m. to Milo barking in a way that I had never heard him bark before. Milo was the friendliest dog in the world, so I'd never really heard him snarl and bark the way he did that night. I get the chills just thinking about it. He was barking directly at the planchette. He kept backing up against my headboard like something was coming at him. His barks were very frantic and distressed. It was not the typical bark like when someone knocks at the door or the delivery man drops a package. This was something else. There was a high-pitched shriek of fear in Milo's voice. He sounded terrified and dangerously defensive. I was instantly panicked over it. I tried to get him to calm down, trying to call his name to draw his attention to me, but he wouldn't even acknowledge me. Finally, Blake jumped up for the light switch since he was closer to it than I was. As soon as the light came on, Milo stopped barking and started growling. Clearly, he saw something that neither of us could see. Whatever it was right where the planchette was. Blake knew it. I knew it. We both gave each other that look you give someone when you both know the same thing and words aren't necessary. I know a dog barking doesn't sound that scary, but this was truly one of the most bizarre and terrifying experiences of my life. Whatever Milo saw was something malevolent. His barks were not normal, and by the way, it actually takes a lot to scare me. I don't scare easy at all, but this experience did and still does give me goosebumps. But the story doesn't end there. Something happened the very next day that I will never be able to scrub from my memory, unfortunately. Blake gathered up his Ouija board and planchette, and his mom picked him up from my place. On their way home, they both died in a tragic car accident. I was absolutely devastated. I didn't connect it to the Ouija board until months later. I was skimming through some old stuff of mine and came across the notebook that we had used that night to record the answers that we were getting from the Ouija board. There was one strange combination of the letter M with the number 17. I saw in the notes that M17 was written down 3 different times. I think I may have figured out the connection. The fatal accident that took the lives of my friend Blake and his mother happened right next to milepost 17 on the highway where they died. I've never touched a Ouija board since.